Welcome back with Happy Chat Boys. So this is a replay each time I upload it. Whatever's happening in the upload, it's not showing what I'm putting into the video, and the video is becoming disruptive. Where when I look at the video in my phone, it's not this way, and so it's some kind of crossover into YouTube. So in my hope that it will work when I make a new video. And so as I speak of the Son of God, I'm going to give you a new view, possibly a new view into your consciousness. And so when I speak of Son of God, I don't mean Jesus Christ, although Jesus Christ is someone we can look at to follow as a son or daughter or child of God. And as we look at the Son of God, we can look at the sun in the sky and how it brought light to darkness on earth. And before that light, there was only darkness. And the dangers of that darkness for man was that there was many beasts out there. And so man found it difficult to survive and to protect and hunt, to live. But when the sun came to the earth and brought light, man was able to see, man was able to create, and man was able to build, to be able to protect themselves from that surrounded them in the world of beasts. And in that time, as the sun came to earth, it rose in the east and set in the west. But it also moved from north to south. And in that time, it took the year for it to move into the south and then to come back into the north. And in the middle of that year, what you find is, which would be December now, and the 22nd, the sun came into the southern hemisphere. And as it came into the southern hemisphere, what you would have seen in the sky was a cross of lights, of stars. And so the sun brought this into light. And what you can see in card games is the Southern Cross. Or if you look at the church, it's got the cross and it's got the circle around the center of that cross. And it took from the 22nd 2.5 to 3 days for the sun to shift again as it became still. It didn't move. And when it shifted, it started to move back north as it rose again from the south to the north. And this is where our astrology comes from. The Son of God, the sun in the sky that brought light to darkness. And what we've seen is they use this in everyday interactions, as its laws, it's our surroundings of what is. And so it's a law of the sun will rise, the sun will set, rise in the east, set in the west. It will move from the north to the south and it will come back again. And there's laws in all this movement and times, which brings in the whole astrology and the setting of the stars and placement of the stars. Like when a sun comes into the southern hemisphere, you can see that cross. And because it stands still, it's seen as the death of the sun until it rises again in 2 to 3 days, 2.5, 3 days. And so then it starts moving back to the north. Does it sound like anything? Maybe the Bible. Which brings me to Jesus Christ, man, and how Jesus Christ is within us all. And before I go to that, this all is north, east, west, and south. News. News that we interact with every day, but we don't see where that came from. News. The north, the east, the west, and the south. And so the news is around us as we look into the sky. And we look at the reflection of that in man. And so Jesus Christ became that. But we have a Bible that has many, many stories in it that surrounds Jesus Christ. Now you talk to any Christian out there, especially they who come at you preaching. Are they following the way? I'm not saying that they all aren't, but a lot are not. They will preach the way of Jesus Christ and they will do everything in the stories that surrounded Jesus Christ that wasn't the way of Jesus Christ, that was all against the way of Jesus Christ, where they weren't loyal, they weren't honest, they didn't have that companionship, they weren't supportive. What was Jesus Christ? Someone who held to the truth, who spoke out the truth, and was surrounded by the lying, the thieving, the stealing, the killing, the war of people. And what was the difference? Obviously, we can see in their actions, but why was Jesus Christ that way? And why was he the Son of God? If the sky is the Son of God, or in the sky you can see the Son of God. And how are we the reflection of that? Because all is consciousness. And consciousness brings everything into a reality, or you would not be. And so in that reality, the sun is within you. All that you see outside of you is within you. I'm not saying you can see the physical side inside you. It's a representation of your consciousness and how you feel about everything. Where once you were light, consciousness that came into this world. As a physical being, but consciously you weren't aware that you were a physical being until you picked up all the consciousnesses around you that was aware that you were a physical being. So you became that physical being. But until that moment, you were just light. And pure, like the sun in the sky. You were loved. You had that vibration to attract people to you. You were pure. You were honest. And so through time, you picked up from all the other consciousness, and that light started to dim, and you started to become somebody. And that somebody lost their light. And so you became Son of Man, like all that you've seen around you. Like Jesus Christ, until he became the Son of God. And so Jesus Christ was like us all, a man. Until that day, he spiritually found who he was in consciousness, realizing that he wasn't the body, but he was the source behind that body, the vibration that flowed through that body. And when he understood this and became aware of this and aware of how he was a part of everything around the world, the universe, in how he consciously was aware of it, in his space, in how he seen it, then it was within him that he could see. And so when the sun rose, it rose within him. And so he became enlightened and became that light, which brought love, peace, as man was able to see. And he found that love for the earth to create and grow and build and be able to protect with his love. But then we got dimmed by the darkness of everything, in the separation, not seeing our creation and how it was created by the light on dark. And so we held on to that darkness of one another through consciousness. And so we became the news onto each other in separation of who we seen as the leader. And today we have a thing called the news, which leads us, but they're led by the universe in the north, in the south, in the northeast, west, south, news. And so they spread it on to us for us to spread it to each other in our own beliefs that this is what it is. Why we miss the truth of it. As truthful as it could be seen as, we don't see where it arises from or derives from. And so we get trapped into the darkness. And like the Bible, we look at Jesus Christ, we pray about Jesus Christ, we preach about Jesus Christ, but we circulate around Jesus Christ and we get into all the happenings that happened around Jesus Christ and be a part of all that because we see ourselves separate from Jesus Christ, as Jesus Christ was the man that went up on the cross and died. What you seen was Jesus Christ rose in who he was by spiritually being, by raising the spinal fluid up into his pineal gland, which became the cross over in the circle in the sun, the cross over in the Son of God. And in that, Jesus Christ was able to see he was a part of everything and not separate it from everything as the Son of Man would see in body. And so, because he was enlightened by what he could now see, which was new to who he was and to all that he could see, he found that love in who he was. As the Son of Man and as the Son of God, he could see all. And if you could see this story, you could see this within you as it's within us all. And you could say, well, the sun rises, that's a natural thing, that we're all going to see it the same way. But we're not. We all may see the sun rise because we rise in who we are as in consciousness. But if we weren't conscious, we wouldn't see no sunrise. If I wasn't consciousness, you wouldn't see me rise. I wouldn't see me rise. There would be no me. You may see it rise. But if the two of us are alive and watching it rise, we're seeing two different pictures inside our space and time of our own consciousness that's within that body, in who we are. And until we move with what we see in our way of consciousness, then we cannot be that that's outside of us as one and all in one. Musketeers. You see, they have these sayings, these quotes in all the films, and they're clues. They're clues to show us. But because we're seen as son of man, what they look at us in the government is Neanderthals. We are seen as incapable of looking after ourselves because we don't know how to love one another. And in a way, you can see why there is jails, police forces, army forces, war. We create all that as son of man because we can't be happy with one another, that we have to look at our differences. And if we could bring it back to being a clean slate and start to look at how we are thinking about who we are, instead of thinking about who everyone else is outside of us, then we would start to see who everybody else is. That they are you, that are I, that we are one and the same. But because we see it by the Son of Man, we see it in separation. And every time that you go through a gateway, like a door, an entrance, you go into that next area, that next room with a clean slate. No matter if you've been thinking about the next room that you're going to go into, what's going to be in that room. When you go in, cross that door, that pathway, you go in with a clean slate, no matter what you're thinking beforehand, even if it's a reflection on that room. When you go into that room, you observe the room and you start thinking about the room, and you start thinking backwards if you were thinking about the room. And so you start putting the room into your picture and look for whatever it was that you went into that room for. So everything's a blank slate when you do a crossover of any entrance, and you start observing what's in that crossover. And so it becomes your consciousness. Now, if there's other people in that other room, we start looking at them, describing them and how we're thinking, how they're looking, how they're acting, and feeling their vibration. And then we start making a picture in our own head, and we start thinking about it from what we know of life, instead of waiting and keeping that clean slate, we start thinking about everything, which gets us distorted in what is actually happening because we're thinking about the past and how we think about things. And so every time we do the crossover into any area, into any entrance, we are holding on to the past. And just like that man becoming spirit, we hold on to the life that's outside of us. So we can't cross over until we look within, and that spinal fluid can rise in who we are by observing, being aware of our consciousness. Not the consciously aware of just the body and the surroundings it's in, but what's happening within the body and why. How your mind's connected to your body, how you feel, how you sense everything. And become aware of how to control all that. So when you do go in through any entrance into any room, how you can adapt to what is happening in the room, but not adapting to what has happened in the world within you, in how you're thinking and feeling about it, in our way of judgment. Obviously, we all judge in some form or another. I'm not saying judging another. I'm saying judging things happening by how we've seen it to be. We must wait to see before we can judge what is and what isn't. But we already are working in our mind, in our programs, to picture the scene for it to be something that it's not. And so then we start to see things happening and we get caught up in it because it becomes a mess in here. Between the past, the present, and we're looking to see what's happening in the future, and we're muddled between them all, and we never really see. And so we're never consciously aware of who we are being. We are aware of all of the seen and unseen that has been seen, and the unseen that has never been seen. And so we become a messed up scene within that scene. And until we rise in our consciousness and be still in who we are and start clearing the mind, then we will never see who we're meant to be, who we really are in that Son of God, that Jesus Christ and who you are. But you can't be that until you picture that, until you bring your awareness about to that and start growing in that, planting the seed and giving it that attention so you can grow into that tree of life that you are. But you pick from the tree. You see that life around you in other trees, and you pick from it. You grasp from it. Oh, they're doing that. I'll go with them. I'll get enjoyment out of that. And so you're picking from their tree, doing what they do, or getting the gratitude that you need from another to feel good about you. While you should be there sitting with you, already feeling good about you, and having that spinal fluid rise within you, and becoming thankful for the God that's within you as you are a child of God. In that godly consciousness that you get choice. But because we are so aware of our senses, we are switched on to them and being alert of separation. So we see things as not part of us, not part of who we are. But you look at one thing that's in your life. If you weren't consciously aware of it, it wouldn't be there. You brought that into your life, whether through time from the past to now, some form of it, and how you were thinking, how you were acting, how you were being, you brought it into your life. You may say, oh, well, I went and bought this or someone gave it to me. But that wouldn't have been there if you weren't consciously aware of it. Just like you wouldn't be there if you weren't consciously aware of it. You see, you're a combination of consciousness between your mother and father who brought a conscious awareness to another facet. So you're two in one. You're part your mother, part your father, and in your DNA that becomes your consciousness, awareness of who you are, but you have a uniqueness in who you are in the two into one. And so you become a consciousness of your own in that facet, but yet we are all the same. We are the one consciousness. We just run through different facets. So we feel and think different because we are in different spaces in time, but we are still one and the same. And until we are aware of that and can sense that in who we see around us, and not as people, beings, but as each one has a soul connected to one another. And in our consciousness, whatever we see, it's within us in some form or another. Now, there's things I see outside of me that I would feel still sometimes maybe get irritated a wee bit. But what I see is an opportunity when that happens. So when something's irritated me, I dive in, I attack it back to see it all happening again, what has happened that caused that irritation. And so I will attack it. And I know it will come back at me. And so I'm better prepared this time. And I'm watching for everything. And I'm absorbing it all. And so the more it comes at me, the less I don't give a fuck. Because I become more aware of it, becomes more familiar, and I start to see why it's happening in me. And why have I got an attachment to it? Because I'm looking outside of me. And so I start to ignore it because it's not part of me. It's not part of what I want. And so it dissolves into nothing because it means nothing to me. And so when that something that becomes irritating to me becomes nothing to me, because I've learned my way of observing it as one time maybe seen as pain, but now it's just a vibration that needs looking at, so I can change the direction of that and the vibration that it brings to me. And so then if I see something that was once irritating and it happens again, it's just a happening. It doesn't mean anything to me. It's just something that's happening outside of me. I see it, I'm aware of it, but I don't feel to it. Because I felt to it and I understand the feeling and what the meaning of it was. So it wasn't something for me to collect in my consciousness. So I let go of it and I move forward. And whether I see it more of it, it don't mean nothing to me. It's just a happening outside of me, because I'm not the body of feelings. I'm the consciousness that holds that corpse into motion, into vibration that brings upon feelings, which is really meaningless unless I let it mean something to me. And when we bring ourselves into that consciousness and awakening, that crossover of news, we bring new news to who we are in that enlightening being, that spiritual being of who we are. That enlightened soul becomes alive as the darkness is swept away, as it doesn't have meaning. It's just a seeing, a happening that is happening outside of you, outside of your consciousness, of that body, that corpse, because that's all the body is. Hopefully, this give you a wider view of my perspective, of course, on the Son of God. And through your consciousness, I hope in your space that you hold that corpse, that you see it in an enlightening way, whatever way that be for you. This be Happy Chopper. Love and peace.